Hi everybody, it's Julia Sansevere, the Martin County Difference with Julia Sansevere, your dancing realtor. We're on FaceTime Live and Facebook Live, excuse me, not FaceTime, Facebook Live. And we'll be on WSTUTV.com and 1450 AM in 2 minutes. Thank you, Frank. And in the studio tonight with me are a couple of wonderful people who are making a difference in Martin County. That's the theme of the show. I have on my right Brent Hanlon. He's the treasurer of CARE Florida, that's Citizens Against Rail Expansion. And to his right is Traylor. She is the one individual who started an amazing movement and an organization called Florida Not All Aboard a couple of years back, 3 or 4 maybe now. Going on 3 years. And that's about the same time I met KC. And this is all about All Aboard Florida tonight. And we're going to get an update from these very involved folks. I got involved. I was basically a cheerleader, and I was going to the Realtor Association on Tuesday mornings after going to meetings at Jupiter Town Hall and other places around our local Treasure Coast that were holding meetings. And I was basically the town crier. And I said, you guys, you got to know something's coming that is not right. And so since that time, I got to know both Brent and KC, and their efforts have not gone unnoticed, and we have made some headway. So we're going to bring you up to speed. A lot of you know about this out there, but for instance, I was in Sarasota today on a realtor event, and they don't know about this. And this affects all of us in terms of our future, of our communities, how we could be affected negatively. And my whole thing is make a difference, make it happen, and you have certainly made a difference. So I want to get to that. And I was installed as a president last week. I was just telling Brent before we were on the air of the Women's Council of Realtors.
Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you. And
Very nice.
it's a business organization that is a very fine and old institution.
Yes.
That really helps promote business leaders and integrity in the community of the realtors. And so I'm really proud of that. It's a really good thing. Yeah, and so with that, you'll be able to help spread the word a little further, I think.
And you're good at that.
Yeah! Which is how I ended up on the radio.
Spread the word.
Talking. So we're going to be going live on WSTUTV.com, and I'll reintroduce you, but tell 30 seconds. Okay, fine. So I want to just say hello to the audience out there, Facebook, and to please like and share this broadcast with your friends, because the more people that like it and share it, the more we get the word out. And you can write questions in, and we'll read your name on the air and talk to you and answer your questions and read your comments. So please do start alerting your friends and building the audience. And we're going on the air soon.
On this program are not necessarily those of WSTU Digital 1450. The opinions expressed are those of the program hosts and guests. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time now for the Martin County Difference with your host, Dan.
Good evening, everyone. It's Julia Sansevere. Thanks for joining us on the radio and on the internet. We're on 1450 AM and WSTU, that's for Stewart, STUTV.com, and also on Facebook Live. So hello, everybody. We've got a webcam in the studio, and we've got my iPhone over there and a tripod. And it's amazing technology today. It is. Yeah, I worked in network television in NBC in New York, and it took 100 people, 4 or 5 cameras, 10 tape machines, and a lot of people screaming and yelling.
Oh yeah, and the hair pulling out and all that.
Yeah, and that still goes on to a little bit, to a degree, but it's so simple now. And I want to just say thanks to the Facebook people. This is a pretty cool thing to have Facebook Live. And have a show that we can go on every week. And this is the Martin County Difference with Julia Sansevere, your dancing realtor. No, I don't do a dance in the show, but that name came out of doing Dancing with the Martin Stars. And everybody knows that I raised a lot of money.
Over $38 $1,000.
Wow, congratulations, that's great.
Every time I say that,
Healthy
I
Start
really have a hard
Coalition.
time wrapping my head around it.
Yeah.
It's huge.
That's right. For Healthy Start Coalition, they assist to make sure that babies are born healthy in Martin County and actually all over Florida. But we did it for here on the Treasure Coast. And that was a lot of fun and for a good cause. But the thing is, I didn't raise the money. I got the word out and then you guys raised the money. So thank you for that. I just want to keep thanking people for that because that was awesome. And that makes a huge difference in the lives of many, many babies to be born. And guess what? Our community is a better place when you have a healthy baby.
Sure
Sure
It
is.
starts things
Yes,
off
it
right.
is. Yeah.
And so tonight on the show, Casey Traylor is down on the end over here, and in between us is this handsome man,
Oh.
Brent Hanlon.
Oh, thank you, Julia.
And if you're not looking at us on the radio station's webcam, you ought to tune in. If you're just listening, we've got a good-looking crew here in the radio tonight in the studio. And I want you to talk close to the mic. Casey knows that. She has her own show. Casey, tell us about your show.
Well, my show is on Tuesdays at 5. I'm on a hiatus, though, until January 10th. I'm taking a little time off.
Okay.
So
You deserve it.
This was my first
Break.
week off, but here I am.
Okay. Oh, thanks for coming in.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Couldn't stay away
much.
from the station, but
And-
we talk a lot about the issues that are affecting the area. Of course, all aboard Florida, but we talk a lot with the elected officials and those
Yeah.
wanting to be elected officials about a lot of many different things besides just all aboard Florida. We talk about Indian River Lagoon, might be dredging, what's happening here in the city of Stuart. So,
That's good.
we're gonna-
Topical for what's going on.
we are, and we're going to have a couple exciting shows coming up in January. One is going to be Nathaniel Reed. He's got a book that he's just released, and we're going to talk about that. And also, as luck would have it, I ran into Alex Sink in the airport, and she's going to be joining the show as well.
Terrific.
So
Good.
we've
Great
got some
lineup.
real good guests coming
How
up.
Sounds
exciting.
like-
And Brent Hanlon, you are the treasurer for an organization called CARE Florida. And I forgot to mention, Florida Not All Aboard is what Casey started.
Right.
So for those of you who are not in the know, this is the genius down there, and I got to know her. I can't believe the first time I saw you was at Jupiter Town Hall at a meeting. Who is that person? She's so knowledgeable, and how does she know all this? And you were just
Yeah,
spitting out the facts, talking.
dynamic.
Dynamic.
Right? That's the word.
And I said, I've got to know this person. And that was the first meeting I ever went to. And then I found out about your organization. I'm like, I want to join. I want to volunteer.
Well, Julia, you were a huge volunteer. You went to many events. It was street events, and you were out there shouting the word Port Salerno Seafood Festival. I mean,
Yeah.
wherever there was people, you were one of the many volunteers, and you were a wonderful
And there
voice.
were many.
The Realtor
Sue-
Association.
Right. They did come step up to the plate with the Seafood Festival. That's right. Many of them. Dan
Huge
Brady
one.
who showed up.
That's,
and
that's right.
yeah.
Gail Ryan is always out there. Still to this day, Gail
Yes.
Ryan
Yes,
is out there.
You're very lucky.
That's
Yes.
exactly
Hi,
right,
Gail.
the
I hope
Green
you're out
Market
there
Sundays.
listening.
Yeah.
Gail Ryan, yes.
Yes.
Lori Dubay,
Lori
Bertha Maddox,
Dubay.
all you guys. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah, and Irene
large.
Nethery Gomes.
Yes.
Yeah, we
Yes.
just have a really good core group, and you know, the more people you know, the more you spread the word, the more we can defeat this.
Well,
It's-
Julia,
yeah.
we actually went down from, Broward County and Fort Lauderdale all the way up to Brevard County. The volunteers have been all over, and we attended so many different meetings. We'd go in to commission meetings. Sometimes we didn't get home till midnight. And I remember Phil McAdam, his wife got sick down in Boynton Beach, and we had to stay there a few days later. They were just so dedicated to this cause and getting the word out, and we did.
Yeah, you really did. And the flea market, the B&A flea market,
Yes.
they've been supportive. We would go over
Hugely
there on
supportive.
Saturdays and Sundays and get petitions. You started the petition that really, we ended up with over 100,000?
It's over 60,000.
Over 60,000. That's good, yeah. So 50 was our goal, so we got over 60.
It's huge.
And people are still welcome to go to the website. Tell them the website to
That's
sign
right.
it.
It is FloridaNotAllAboard.com, and you can find the petition there or also on our Facebook page, which is also Florida Not All Aboard, of
Right.
course. And there's a link to the petition there, and yes, you can still sign it.
Right, great. And Brent, may I mention where you work?
Well,
Or not.
you may.
Okay.
I'm a community association manager, if you will.
Yes.
And you should also know, and your listeners should know also that it was the efforts of KC
Yeah.
that brought this to my attention also. Early 2014, KC joined our group here in Hope Sound.
Right.
And she brought the threat to our attention. To be quite honest with you, we weren't quite aware of all over Florida and the impact it would have on our quality of life, and our property values, and our safety. And so it was through Casey's efforts that brought the attention to myself, which then led into CARE Florida at a later point. But
Right. And
it was
CARE
Casey's
is C-A-R-E.
C-A-R-E, correct?
Citizens Against
rail expansion in Florida,
in
FL also, that's correct, yes.
And the website is saveourfl.com, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And it's a great
yes.
website. Both of your websites are great. And you get a lot of information there. Share the websites with your friends.
Yeah, we get a lot of traffic through our websites, and we do monthly updates, and we post all our updates that are taking place through with Care Florida on our websites monthly. So you'll find a wealth of information there regarding all of North Florida and CARE's efforts to, quite honestly, to defeat all of North Florida.
Yeah,
And the impact it's going to have on our quality of life.
Quality of life is all there is. I mean,
There is.
When you live in Florida, you come here for the quality of life.
Right.
And it just is just galling to me that, people want to argue the point, well, the railroad tracks are what brought you here. And we're like, yeah, a long, long time ago, about 100 years. And guess what? Population has increased. The density has changed.
That's right.
They're not coming down in cute little choo-choo trains anymore. They fly in. They drive in. The world has changed. So we...
800 people a day move to Florida.
Okay, there
800
you
a
go.
day.
A day.
And they're not coming by train.
No.
No, they're not. You're right, they're not.
And they're not going to leave here on a train either, if we can help it. Now, there are some facts and figures out there, and we'll get to those. Some of that is that people say, well, Julia, how can you, that train has left the station. They're already doing this. They're building it down in south of us. I'm like, yeah, they might be, but they're not going to come up here, as long as I have a breath in my body. And we've gone to the meetings, and we've talked to these people toe to toe, and their facts and figures don't add up.
Julie, you have to realize too that back in 2014, All Aboard Florida did sell $405 million worth of bonds. They're not private activity bonds, they were bonds. And these were very high risk junk bonds. They sold like 12.75% right before they hit the teens. So, that's $405 million that they had, but they're going to have to repay those.
Right.
And so that's certainly a proposition that All Aboard Florida has to deal with. And in addition to that, down in Miami-Dade County, they had over $60 million that they got to help build the station because they want to bring Traylor in. It's kind of a big hub. So they did get taxpayer funding down there to help continue to build this. So there is growth happening in the southern portion, but people have to realize that's why. And those bonds are something we do watch very closely because they are going to end up having to pay the piper back at some point on those.
Right, and that's where this all began, was that it was a RIF loan. Can you define RIF?
It's a Railroad Rehabilitation Infrastructure Financing Loan, and that's really where, when I started Florida Not All Aboard, and folks to this day, I still believe this, if we keep government funding out of this project, it's going to stop it in its tracks. And at that point, that was their only form of financing, was a $1.75 billion. We have here a little bit different figures there, but it's a lot of money.
Yes.
Taxpayer-backed loan.
That was the issue. It's taxpayer-backed. It's not free money.
It's not, it's taxpayer backed, so if they defaulted, the taxpayers would have been on the hook for that. So that's where we started up Florida Not All Aboard and said, look, you shouldn't be using our tax dollars for this private company. Private companies should get their own money. And then lo and behold, then became the private activity bonds.
Sure.
We're going to try and sell those. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And the fact is, they still don't have the approval. They call it the ROD, the Record of Decision.
The RIF loan is definitely still on the table. The private activity bonds, they're still trying to sell a lesser amount of them now. So.
Right.
Yeah, the original application for the bonds was $1.75 billion, which the Florida Development Finance Corporation approved just over a year ago, actually. In January 1 of 2017, that approval was to expire. But what has transpired since then is the all over Florida has gone back to the DOT, the Department of Transportation, and they've actually withdrew that bond application of $1.75 billion, and they asked for a lesser amount of $600 million. That bond money was approved. That money also is to be earmarked for Phase 1, which is, we know is from Miami to West Palm Beach. We believe, there's speculation, but we believe that money might be used to offset that junk bond money that they received back in 2014 at double-digit figure interest rate.
Borrowing from Peter to pay Paul kind of thing?
Yeah,
of course.
shuffling money, little shell game, if you will.
Shell game,
yeah, you're right, yes.
Well, I think Steve Ryan, your attorney put it really well, and the fact that he said it's like pouring bad wine into another bottle.
Yeah,
it's still bad wine.
a bottle, still good wine. That's right. But still, what's out there today, if you will, lingering is the additional $1.1 billion in funding that they still need to fund Phase 2, which is that West Palm Beach to Orlando corridor.
Right.
We believe that the idea for them to withdraw the original application of $1.75 billion was to reverse the decision that Judge Cooper made. Judge Cooper made a decision in, I believe it was September of 2016, that the counties had standing. There was some concern there about using this tax-free money, and we could challenge the use of that money. So therefore, we believe that AAF has taken that option off the table to try to mute that argument, if you will, to try to take that argument off the table. So that's why they've gone back now, and they are, again, playing the shell game with the money and looking for the money in two separate tranches. But I can assure you and your listeners this, and that is that we are anticipating them going back to the United States Department of Transportation and Florida Development Finance Corporation for an additional $1.1 billion. And when they do, CARE Florida is well prepared to challenge that bond application.
That's good. And that's where this has to be, the unification of the communities. And that is what has happened, is that we feel this is an attack by Goliath, and we are David.
Yeah.
And there's just no rhyme or reason and no right reason for them to do this. It is to make money, and we're not against a corporation making money. And I think that what our listeners need to know is we don't expect to stop them. We would like them to amend what they're doing, go west, for instance, to find a better route than going straight through our towns. And for those of you who don't know, this is Florida East Coast Railroad. They have freight tracks going all the way up the eastern seaboard of Florida through our little towns that are quaint and have developed over time to have an economic survival, you know, because they were dying for a while there. So we've brought back the small town America in Stuart, for instance, Jupiter. There are 3 railroad bridges over rivers, one in Fort Lauderdale, one in Jupiter, and one in Stuart.
Yeah.
And all 3 of them are pretty ancient. And they, that's part of it, that they're ancient. They would have to be up more of the day, down, excuse me, more of the day for the train to go across than up. So that impacts our nautical navigational traffic. And we're not just talking pleasure boats. A long time ago, they dug a trench across Florida, right from Stuart over to the west coast. And that is used for commercial shipping. So you would impede commerce that way. And as well, you would impede the ability of people to get back and forth on their fishing boats. There's fishermen, so it's not just barges. There are marine industries that would be affected very negatively. So we want to make sure that those businesses survive and continue to thrive, because we are a deep water fishing capital here.
That's right.
In Stuart, we have the inlet to the ocean. And so we want to maintain that, and you know, Stuart's worked really hard to become the sweet little cute quaint town. We were named the happiest seaside town in Coastal Living magazine for 2016, and we'd like to keep that distinction. So we are feeling bombarded a little bit by this big company that doesn't listen to the needs of the people. And so aside from the nautical traffic, we have cars that would have to wait to get over the tracks if a train is coming in. By the way, it's 32 trains a day. We're going to go back over some of the elementary facts. 32 extra trains a day. We have how many, Casey, of freight trains every day?
You know, that's a really good question. It was 14. They were supposed to be bumping it up to 20. Now, I have heard, and I hear of them every night. They don't sound like there's that many. So.
No, you're right. I would agree with that. There seems to be less freight train running up and down the corridor today.
Right, but they're loud at night. They blow their horn.
They are that.
Whistle.
They are that. And Julia, also, I'm sorry, but don't forget the impact of the first responders also.
That's what I was about to say. Wait till you get over the track.
Fire department, first responders, those who are getting to and from a emergency medical condition of some sort. They have to cross those at-rail grade crossings, if you will.
Right. And an at-grade crossing means there's no overpass. You're waiting at the same level. And we did have a horrible accident in Jensen Beach recently, and Gail's friend.
I was going to say, one of the members of our family, Miss Bonnie Walton, passed away because it took 20 minutes for emergency responders to get to the house. We don't know if they would have saved her or not, but it was 20 minutes, and there was a house fire. And rest in peace, and our condolences to Miss Bonnie Walton's family and friends.
So sad.
It was very tough. So.
And that was just the regular train traffic we have right now.
Right.
You add 32.
So if you add 32 trains, whether they're fast or not, that's the arm of the railroad arm going down, having to wait, build up traffic, and the accidents are bound to happen. And as you know, we were talking out in the hallway, the tragedies are piling up. Now, not to use a bad pun, but we just have continuing train tragedies, and it just boggles my mind.
We've had a couple of deaths in the last couple of months. One
Yes.
just last night. A young boy was hit, but he didn't pass away, but right here in Martin County earlier this year. You know, the safety of the train is definitely of ultimate concern.
Because of the power, the power control, and to slow it down
The PTC
automatically.
control, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Which doesn't work yet, but
It
yes,
doesn't
I
work
mean,
yet, but those are the things that could be applied, and they're not even doing that in the Northeast corridor. So what makes them think they're gonna do it here? You know, they haven't done
Yeah.
that to slow the train down automatically.
Positive train control
Thank
is
you.
a very important mechanism that AAF should not, all of our Florida should not be able to required to even run up and down the corridor until implementation is in every single one of those passenger rails and also in the freight rail system also.
Right.
There was, I read a story not long ago that they've actually have pushed back the installation period for the PTC, that control system, if you will, for those trains. We should not, our governor should not allow that train to even begin running up and down this corridor without that particular mechanism installed in those trains.
Yeah, you can't
Period.
build a house without proper permits. You can't,
Yep.
you can't live in it without a certificate of occupancy.
Mhm.
This is the real estate moment. So, you know, why would we allow something that, a huge, long line of trains that might be filled with hazardous material, they might be filled with people, to run on a track that is not properly, you know, fitted out
There's
for
proper
safety?
safeguards, sure.
Our safety is number one, should be number one,
Mhm.
and of course, when it comes down to money, safety goes out the window. And this is a money issue. I think Casey and I always said, follow the money.
Yeah.
It's
It is
like,
follow
I
the
call
money.
it train gate. Does
Stop
everybody
the
remember
money.
Watergate?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
call it train gate, because this is literally about the money that I think, my opinion, not the radio station, no sponsor here, just me. I think it's about the money that they can make, and they don't wanna spend a dime to do anything different that would eat into their profits. And, you know, they make plenty of money, they have been making plenty of money in this country for a long, long time. But there is no passenger rail system in this country that makes a profit.
That's correct.
And we get back to that aspect of it, that there is Amtrak in the state. There is the Tri-Rail down from Miami to West
Right.
Palm. There was the Fun Train in the late 90s.
There was, that's
Right.
right, past
And
tense.
some people that I've had this, you know, conversation with, who are from Florida, and say, oh, we should have mass transportation. I'm like, maybe we should. That's okay. I'm not against mass transportation. I lived in New York City for a long time. But in those areas, you have the need for mass transportation, and you have the connectivity for mass transportation.
Right.
If they build one thing here, they haven't considered the spokes off, right?
Yes, let's not lose sight of Tri-Rail, which now currently runs between Miami and West Palm Beach, is commuter rail, right?
Right.
The state is subsidizing that commuter rail $30 million annually. So, let's put on top of that,
Okay.
I apologize,
That's
let's
okay.
put on top of that a competitive train
Yes.
along the same corridor.
Right.
What's that gonna do to our taxpayer money? We're subsidizing Tri-Rail, I'll tell you, at the tune of $30 million. Now we wanna add a competition to the same corridor?
Right.
Does that make sense to anyone?
I think of the word
I don't
boondoggle,
think it makes any sense at all.
and there is no sense to it, and so somebody is profiting, is what
Mhm.
it all boils down to typically.
And they want to, that's absolutely
And they
right.
want to.
Yes.
And so, you know, I'm not against capitalism. I live in America. It's a great country. I'm a patriot. But I think we have our checks and balances for a reason, so that the little guy doesn't get trod on.
Well, you have to take into account how it is impacting the communities and our businesses and commerces here that actually do business in the community. They bring
Right.
economic benefit to our community.
Right.
The train does not. That was the big thing with All Aboard Florida. There is no economic benefit to our communities here.
Right.
Maybe around the West Palm Beach station, maybe Miami, but there certainly isn't on the Treasure Coast. There are no stops, and in fact, it'll impede our businesses.
Yes.
Let's not lose sight also of the parent company here, Fortress. Fortress
you.
Investments is a
Yes.
hedge fund company, correct?
Right.
Their business is to get in and get out. Get in, pump money into the
Mhm.
investment, dump the investment, right?
Right.
Fortress had, I can't imagine them, the investment company, actually retaining the business of high-speed rail for any length of time. We have felt, some people have felt, I should say, that this is a pump and dump scheme.
Yeah.
Pump the assets in the corridor, pump up the capital, and then dump all over Florida.
The asset,
The
yeah.
asset at some point.
Right.
You know, there's been some rumor floating around, which we believe is to be true, that they've been shopping FECI, the Florida East Coast Road. They've been shopping that company.
And their stock bounced just on the announcement.
Yeah, you noticed
Bounced
that?
up.
It bounced
On
up.
the announcement of
So what a
this,
great
on
idea,
this,
right?
yes.
So I ask you, so I can't imagine anyone buying FECI, the freight company, and
Right.
leasing back the corridor or the train tracks for someone to run high-speed rail along the same corridor. It just does not make sense.
It
Right.
doesn't. Freight companies typically do not want to have passenger
Yeah,
rail running on
good
the
point.
same corridor. So if they were to sell one portion or the other, how is the passenger and the freight going to communicate with each other?
Right.
It really does impede the freight business, and that's where the true money is
Yeah.
for this company.
Right,
So-
because they dug the,
Panama Canal.
thank you,
Yes.
Panama Canal, I'm thinking canal, and I couldn't think of the word, the country. The Panama Canal, if everybody also hasn't been watching the world news, that has been dug deeper and wider, and they are bringing super container ships in, and there's a connection between those super containers and the company that owns them, and I believe the train company, is that right?
There
I
is.
think so. Right.
There is. They also, Fortress Investment Group has a lot of different companies, and they
Right.
certainly have cargo container companies as well. And, you know, Brett is absolutely right, that these hedge funds want to keep businesses and flip them in 8 to 10 years. So
Mhm.
we have to remember that they purchased Florida East Coast Railway in 2007. We're now heading into the 10th year.
Mhm.
So it's kind of interesting now we're hearing that they're thinking about
Mhm.
possibly selling.
Sure.
I mean, they're hitting that 10 years, the investors want their money back. So,
Right.
and I think that back in 2012, I always want people to realize this, that in 2007 they bought 2 railroad companies. There was Rail America and there was Florida East Coast Railway. Rail America, they did exactly what a hedge fund should do. They pumped it up and they sold it for over twice their initial investment in 2012.
Wow.
That's what they should do. But in 2012, they still had Florida East Coast Railway, and that's where they hatched the All Aboard Florida plan. And it was a $1.5 billion RIF loan. And I want people to realize a couple things here. That RIF loan, that was their only form of financing until the opposition came. When Florida Not All Aboard, Care Florida, everybody came along, all of a sudden they're still scrambling for funding,
Yes.
folks. They're still scrambling for funding. This train was supposed to start in 2014. No joke, the end of 2014.
Right.
They were so certain. They got pushed to 2015, now 2016, now 2017, and they're still scrambling for funding. How many people start a project without funding in place?
Right.
This company has. Does that make any sense? It does not. And the other thing that I really want to point out, and I want to thank Care Florida, I want to thank Indian River County,
Yes.
Martin County,
Yes.
and St. Lucie County as well. But Martin and Indian River in particular put up a ton of money with oppositions to lawsuits. And folks, these lawsuits are worth it. We need to fight this project. So don't think that because you might think we haven't seen any huge wins, we've seen little wins, this is helping. This is why this train has not started up yet. This is why we're seeing them say, well, maybe we should concentrate right now on West Palm to Miami. The opposition's been here in the Treasure Coast. It is working. We are winning, and we've got to keep the opposition up. So supporting Care Florida, Indian River, Martin County, you've got to let your elected officials know you support this fight.
Yes, write to your local officials, and there's a list of them on both websites.
Mhm.
And let them know that this should not be happening. This should not be allowed to happen. And we do have influence on who gets elected, as we saw in the recent election. And the other thing is, money is needed. So I started raising money on this show for the babies. So we want to fight the train, and if you want to jump on board against All Aboard, please do send in dollars to Care Florida, to their website. There's a link there, I believe.
There is SaveOurFlorida.com.
Right, Save Our Florida,
yes.
and it's SaveOurFL.com.
SaveOurFL, correct, thank you.
And there's a link there to click on to donate, and the money goes completely to the legal fund to
Mhm.
defend our community, your community, from this invasion. And that's what I call it. It's an invasion and an intrusion. We all moved here for a quiet life, and we have it still, more or less, without the train whistle at 3 o'clock in the morning. But, you know, people think, oh, you're just Chicken Little. We're not. And this is not a panic, knee-jerk reaction and not in my backyard, NIMBY, that was a term I learned from you.
Right.
It's not a not in my backyard. It is put it where it makes sense. And out by the turnpike or the highway where there already is a thoroughfare there, you know, you could build tracks there. Or the tracks out west that already exist, they do belong to CSX, another company, but if anybody's ever noticed, sitting at a train track, waiting for the train to go through, you see the letters CSX
Right.
on the FEC train tracks. So we know they can make a deal.
They're sharing the roadway, aren't they?
Yeah,
They are.
share
You're right.
the,
Yeah.
share the road.
Yeah.
So I wanna, just quickly go to, Facebook and say we've got a nice group who've joined us, Jane Harness and Megan Lyons Vaughn, and, Jill Boyce, and Sharon Hill-Paw, and Catherine Massey, Lori Dubay, thanks, hi Lori, and Lori has said, sold to Alaska. Now, what does that mean?
I'm not sure.
Okay, sold to Alaska. Is that the pipeline we're talking about? We're talking about the train. But she did say, thank you, Casey, Brent, and Julia. So Lori, tell me what your Alaska comment means. And Megan Vaughn is so glad to get an update. And yeah, Megan's my neighbor.
Terrific.
And yeah,
That's
so
great.
thanks for listening, Megan. And Catherine is in Texas, my sister, Catherine Massey. Glad you were sharing this. Please, you guys, share it out there. And we've had 2 shares already, so thank you for that. Lori and Catherine Massey shared this. So do that, share it and like it, because this is how you get the word out. And I liken it to abuse. And when abuse stays hidden and untalked about, it destroys lives. It can be any kind of abuse. And this is, I think, abuse of the community and our goodwill, because we feel we have no power, but Casey has a wonderful saying of Margaret Mead on the end of your email. Do you have that memorized? Because I don't, but it's really good.
I don't know if I memorized verbatim, but it's basically
Paraphrase.
nothing can change the world like a group of citizens can.
Right.
They're really the only things that do is a group
That's
of
right.
committed citizens and people. So,
Absolutely.
and that's what we are.
Yeah.
And we have changed things. Major things are changing with this. And, you know, I'm going to jump back to the lawsuits
Okay.
for just a second, and I want to steal a phrase from Commissioner Jenkins. And that is with these lawsuits, there's 2 kinds. There's those that are a shield and those that are a sword. The lawsuits that Care Florida, Martin, and Indian River County have started as a shield to protect us. That's why we need to support these. They're here to protect us.
Well put.
So, you know, please make sure, moving forward, this is a long fight, and people, you know, you get tired, and you feel like it's such a big corporation, you may not be able to defeat it, but we are winning the small battles, folks. And I just wanna make sure everybody realizes not only to donate to Care Florida, but please, you need to make sure our elected officials know you still support it. They still need to hear from us.
Right.
A new commission has just been elected.
Right.
The new commissioners need to hear from you.
Absolutely.
So, you know, make sure you're letting Martin County, St. Lucie County, Indian River County, we need to continue this fight.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you,
is going to
Casey.
take a village, Julia, and it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's outside of Martin County and River County, and the various counties are supporting this fight today. CARE, Florida on Board, and all the other grassroots groups are out there. But this is going to take a large cooperation with a lot of people, and you know, we need your listeners, those on Facebook, to write Senator Rubio and Bill Nelson and let them know that we expect them to provide the proper oversight, the proper governance for those of us who live on the eastern seaboard, to be sure that 1, we have a safe railway, and 2, that all of our Florida is following the letter of the law. Period.
Yes.
You know, I mean, is that too much to ask for of our elected officials? To be
Right.
sure that this train company is following the letter of the law? I don't think so.
Right.
So
And
you're,
making backroom deals and, you know, playing that pea and shell game is just
Sure.
not right.
And folks, we have a President Trump now that actually has a home in Palm Beach County, right?
Yes.
Yeah, good
So,
point, yeah.
you know, he should have some understanding of
Sure.
all aboard Florida
And-
running through. And, you know, I just had somebody message me on Facebook that the New River Bridge is gonna be shut down for like 11
Yeah, I
days.
saw that.
Crazy
Whoa.
if that's true. I'm like, oh my gosh. And that may wake some people up down there, because we had a real great center of citizens, but it was a small group and they just couldn't get the word out.
Right.
This will.
Yeah.
I'm sure this will, is right, it sure will.
Wow, that's unbelievable. And are they doing that just for normal repairs?
I think it's for upgrades to be on board Florida, but I don't know.
Oh,
I mean,
okay,
that's
okay.
just what the impression
And you know,
is. It's
that's
just
the
a report
thing,
on
is that
Facebook.
people see the train in people, the construction people, whatever, regrading and doing, well, of course they're
They
doing
do
maintenance.
maintenance up
Yeah,
here all the time,
Right.
and they
The
need
other
to.
thing is that I found out interesting when we first got involved, is that it's a private company, and they own the land around the tracks,
They
to the
do.
left and right sides of it.
About 100-foot right away.
Right, 100-foot right away. And Stewart, the town of Stewart, or any town, is allowed to build a roadway over there. It's a right of way, but we have to pay to maintain that.
That's
We, the
correct.
citizens, the town municipalities. Therefore, let's talk about the safety controls, the things they were talking about, which, when I went to the Kane Center, that's when I think everybody kind of woke up and went, what kind of joke is this? They had animated graphics that showed little cute tiny white boats going through the bridge really fast, waiting and lining up in a straight line like they were cars, and they were on water. They didn't depict waves, wind, currents,
Sure.
other boats sloppy, you know.
That's right.
And we have a very narrow opening of our train bridge that's
Yes.
right next to the old Roosevelt car bridge. That was the only bridge we had for a while, a
Correct.
drawbridge. And now, I've been on our boat, and we have gone through, and you have to wait for both bridges to be simultaneously opened up. It's a process, and it takes time. And the one thing I want to remember to say is there's nobody at the train bridge controlling it from here. They don't see you. They're up in Jacksonville.
That's right.
Yeah,
Right.
just,
Our road bridge has what they
Mhm.
call a tender, a bridge tender, a man up in there, and you call him on the boat radio, and that's how he knows to open up for you. Well, and the train bridge stays open for most of the time. So anybody out there who doesn't live near a river with a train bridge over it, this is what happens typically. So it stays in the up position until a train is coming, and they do have signals, they know it's coming. And the train bridge has to go down a certain amount of time before the train arrives at the trestle, you know, to make sure it's down.
That's right.
And so there's a couple of minutes there, or, you know, a couple of miles away, whatever it
Mhm.
is the distance. And then it stays down until the train passes for a little bit of while. And so then it goes back up. And these, again, are ancient, almost 100-year-old bridges.
They almost.
Very rusty. I've been up against them and took a picture and everything. And that's
Right.
one of the things, they won't give us a report. They let the bridges are fine.
And Julia, you have to remember too that the Stewart Bridge is the only one that will not be double tracked. So this
There
is
you
a
go.
huge choke
Right.
point in the whole
Right.
entire line. Everything's double tracked but our bridge here in Stewart. So imagine what that's gonna be with 32 the fast trains
Waiting.
and then another 14 to
freight.
20 freight that is supposed to be increasing every year,
Right.
like 3%. So
And what we've always said is All Aboard Florida, AAF, is really all about freight.
Right, yeah, yeah.
And that we don't expect to really
Mhm.
see the passengers come, or even the passenger trains, even if they build one car, that we won't see them actually coming. And if we do, it will fail quickly, and this is the whole point of being a Trojan horse, that it will fail, and then they will have their money to have built the extra track for the freight. And again, we go back to the freight, and okay, make your money, that's great, but build it out west.
well, it's
or
one thing if
go
they're
on
using
to-
private money too, or government
Right.
taxpayer backed money. Private
Right.
money is a little different story. People don't wanna lose private money.
Right.
Taxpayer money, it's the honeypot of the government. I mean, we all know there's a
I
slush
know.
fund up there and everybody's
Sure.
got their hands in it.
Mhm.
True.
That's where it's a really big deal right now to watch where they're getting their funds from. And it's unfortunate that Miami-Dade gave them the $60 million they did. But
Oh.
let's keep watching. You
Yeah.
know, it's really huge right now that they're concentrating on West Palm to Miami. That's no coincidence, guys. It's because of us.
Right.
And I say us as a Treasure Coast,
Right.
our communities and all the opposition.
Yeah,
Right.
going back to the bridges, Julie, if you don't mind,
Mm.
in 2015, CARE Florida commissioned Captain Dana Goward. Captain Dana Goward is a retired United
Yes.
States Coast Guard
I remember reading his
captain.
report.
He also, during his tenure, if you will, he was responsible for the oversight and the condition of all the bridges throughout the United States.
Mhm.
So he had obviously quite a big responsibility. He looked at the closure times for all the bridges, the additional freight traffic and additional high-speed passenger rail, and his study showed that the trains, the closures will take place about 11 hours a day. So imagine what that's going to do to our boating industry.
It's
From
terrible.
Fort Lauderdale
Shut
through
it
Stewart.
down.
Yes,
It
shut
would
it.
just shut it
does.
down.
It does.
The weekend boaters who are out there, or the commerce down in Fort Lauderdale, the impact
Commerce
it's going to
as
have on
well
them.
as real estate values
Yep,
for the people
good
that
point.
have boats that are, you know, west of the bridges that bought
Yes.
for ocean access.
Yes, and there have been real estate repercussions. I
There
mean,
have
you-
already here in Martin
Already,
County.
and that's what I was gonna say, that's the real estate section of this show about that, is that, you know, I've probably, you know, people, do you tell everybody? Well, yeah, you have to disclose it. But do we shoot ourselves in the foot?
Mhm.
No, what we do is we alert the masses and they get on board
There you
against
are.
all aboard.
Good idea.
And this stops it, because nobody wants their real estate values to go down. And Laurel Kelly is our property appraiser, and she conducted a study along, I think, the University of Florida, right, FAU.
FAU.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And they did determine that certain proximity to the track, and, you know, there's a percentage of
Mhm.
value lost the closer you are to the track. Obviously, I mean, it's duh, But they did do a study to have it in black and white.
And they
prove it.
determined the homes that are west of the bridge are not gaining in value at the same rate as those east of the bridge. So we've
Correct.
already lost taxable value and the train hasn't even started yet.
Right, and where do they get that tax income from? They have to raise our taxes, so if the property value goes down, and, I can't get into the math of it, but
Mhm.
it has to,
Sure.
it has to come in somewhere, come into play. So we want to make sure that our values stay, and we are doing well, we're on an upswing. There is little, but nobody likes heavy fees, and so that's what would happen to us, I think.
Well, it's one or the other. It's cut services or raise taxes. It's
Thank
simple.
you, thank you. That was what Laurel said, and you said that too, and that's great. And I learned a lot from Casey. So I want to thank you, Casey, and I want to thank you, Brent, for all you've done for Care Florida and for all the citizens, because this is a grassroots effort.
No question.
It is a grassroots effort, and there's so many people to thank. And I mean, even down to Delray Beach, Commissioner Katz and Commissioner Petrolia and Mayor Glickstein, they right in the heart of Palm Beach County, passed resolutions against all aboard Florida. And they had a death there earlier this year as well on the train tracks in Delray Beach. So there's opposition in those areas. There's just not enough that made a difference. The county commissions and further up the line. So, but there is, all the way up to Brevard County as well. It goes on and on and on, the opposition pockets and its citizens, and it is truly the ones that will change the world, so.
Yeah, and I want to thank Lori Dubé. She posted saveourfl.com through my Facebook page, and Megan Lyons Vaughn also did.
Lori Dubé is a huge,
She's
huge
huge.
phone.
We
Yeah,
love you,
thank you,
Lori.
Lori.
Thank
I
you.
know, Lori,
From
you're-
Jupiter.
She's the heart of
Yeah.
Jupiter.
Right,
She's the heart
she
of
is,
Jupiter opposition.
and she keeps up the pace, and and Megan posted an article through Care Florida as well, and my sister says, we got rid of the train whistle in a Houston neighborhood, it's quiet now. How about that? So things can be done and accomplished, so that's pretty good. And Houston has a great economy and a great real estate value, but you know what? There is a train track that goes right through and through the heart of Houston in this section, kind of near where I grew up, but it was far enough away that we didn't really hear it. But they don't run the trains or run the whistle like they used to. They're and it's not CSX, and it's not, I think it's Dixie
Okay.
down in
Okay.
Texas,
Could
yeah.
be.
Not FEC. So our train companies here should take a lesson. They should hello, how do they do it somewhere else? Oh, and they get along with the people. So we're saying, we want to get along. We want the train, and I don't mind having, you make your money and do your thing, but let's work together. We have certainly brought forward to the table other options for them to do.
We have.
And what we found out is that they didn't look at those options when they came out with their initial assessment, the environmental assessment. And I think that's the thing, we feel we were really disrespected.
Well, we felt all along the FEIS, the final environmental impact
Right.
study, was a flawed document from day one.
Very flawed.
There's a number of things they neglected to do, and one was to look at alternate routes, if
Right.
you will, up and down the corridor, up and down the eastern seaboard in the state of
Right.
Florida, for that matter. So, that by far, that document is clearly flawed. I want to mention, go back to
Go ahead.
the fatality you mentioned about
Yes.
the person down
Down.
south. Just yesterday we lost a gentleman in Jupiter from a train
Oh,
accident.
no.
Actually, we did. So that takes the count to 36 casualties, if you will, along the FECI tracks since early 2015. That's more than one a month.
That's terrible.
And that's
It is
before
terrible.
the high-speed trains come. These
Before-
trains are going slower, and
Yeah.
yes, and we're gonna add another 32 on it. So
Yes.
They're quieter and slower, or faster than the high-speed trains. So.
Well, and then the one thing, when I was at the Stewart Town meeting, it was over a year ago, I guess, and I had just found about, and I won't say it properly, it's a Canadian town, Lac Megantic.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Sure.
the Magnetech, I think it is.
Something like
Yes,
that.
it's horrific what happened there.
Horrible, and it was a town much like Stewart. And the issue came in when they were on a river, it was a Saturday night, they were all out in the town enjoying themselves, and it just incinerated the town. It was a train filled with oil, I
There-
believe.
It was an
and-
oil
yeah.
train, that's correct.
And it went in the river, so number
Mhm.
one, you have pollution,
Pollution,
number two,
right.
you're killing people
Sure.
and burning the town to the ground. And 47 lives were lost that night, just awful.
Coincidentally, that train went bankrupt, of course, because they couldn't pay for all the
My
damage
next
that
point,
had been done.
the
And
money.
Fortress
That's right, yeah.
ended up purchasing that in
Mhm.
bankruptcy, by the way.
Right, and that was the night that Rusty Roberts, who is part of the organization for All Aboard
That's
Florida.
right,
A
the VP
train
at Florida
came
Express.
through
That's
that
right,
night,
yes.
and you managed to get it on.
Oh, it's on tape.
It's on tape. He said, "Sound of money."
Yes, it's on
Right after
money.
we've
Yeah, he
been
did.
talking about death and destruction by trains.
Yeah, that wasn't very
Really?
popular.
Very callous.
That
Very
statement, you're
callous.
right.
And that's the callous attitude I feel we face. So we have to put their feet to the fire through the court system. This is the most important, and the only and best way is our defense is through the court system, through the judicial system. And finding an impartial judge, hopefully, who will see the facts for what they are.
Yeah. No, you're right. I must tell you, if you don't mind, I'd like to
ahead.
educate your listeners on Care Florida
Please do.
and how we spend the money that we raise
Okay.
through the efforts of the grassroots efforts
Yes.
and other means. But you know, our lead counselor, Mr. Steve Ryan, with McDermott, Will, and Emery. Steve defeated a rail project in Minnesota, Rochester, Minnesota, back in I think it was 07 or 08. So Steve is very aware of the railroad laws. We engaged Mr. Ryan in June of 2014. We also have Alia Faraj Johnson, Hill and Knowlton Strategies. They are a lobbying firm outside of Tallahassee. We have engaged them for almost for 2 years now. We have just recently hired a lobbying team, which I will not make that announcement this evening because it's
Okay.
a little premature.
Yeah.
But since the election period has just recently passed, our strategies are changed a little bit. So we're going to turn to some local lobbyists in Tallahassee and in Washington also. And also we have Firefly, Stacey Ranieri's group here in Martin County
Firefly, right.
to help manage our social media program. So you know we have a very high expense rate. It takes every we need money to continue this fight, obviously,
Yeah.
and we welcome people to make the smallest amount of contributions for our fight. But as you can see by those listed names and the talent we have working for us today, it takes an awful lot of money to keep this moving forward. And it's our intentions and our mission is to protect the Eastern Seaboard and stop all over Florida from ruining our lives. And we will continue to for that to be our mission, if you will, going forward.
I
We
think
will.
it's a wonderful mission.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get much time on this earth in the grand scheme of things. So while we're here, we want to have it as nice as we can and enjoy our lives. And you know, this crazy back and forth, who's in control? It's a little, you know, it's mind-boggling that they want to control our lives, I think, and our quality of life through the manipulation of the system of the government and the money and all of that, just to get their way, to make more money. And again, I'm not against them, you know, staying afloat, but there are creative ways that they could do that that would not affect us negatively. And again, my motto is make a difference, make it happen. And I don't mean a negative difference, make a positive difference. And we can do that, and we are doing that.
We are making a
doing
difference,
that.
there's no question.
We are making
We
it.
are
Like I
making a
said, they
difference,
were
yeah.
supposed to start 2014, they still haven't
Yeah.
started. So
Right.
people need to remember that we are making
Right.
small wins and we're definitely making progress.
And if I may go back to the bond issue, if you don't mind, too. As we know, they withdrew the offer for $1.75 billion. They got an approval for $600 million.
Wait, how many did they sell?
Zero, I believe. The number
Really?
was,
Yeah.
I believe it was zero. Yeah.
Nothing.
Yes.
They sold nothing.
So they got the approval for $600 million for phase one. One, we're going to keep a very close eye on how they spend that money.
Yes.
But two, CARE believes that they should be mandated to go back to the FC if in fact they do that, the Florida Development Finance Control Department in the state of Florida, and also to the United States Department of Transportation and reapply for the $1.1 billion.
Correct.
Don't take that application they submitted over 2 years ago, dust it off, and look for a stamp of approval.
Right.
Using the analogy that I have used in the past was, as a homeowner, you go out and you apply for a mortgage. That mortgage is good for how long? 69
90-day
days
lock,
maybe?
60-day lock.
90-day
Right.
locks, however long
Right.
it should be?
Right.
2 years for a $1.1
Right.
billion ask? No way. They should have to go back and reapply for that money.
Right. Drain the swamp.
Drain the swamp.
Yes.
Right, Mr. Trump, our president-elect at Mar-a-Lago. Florida delivered for him, now he can deliver for Florida. That's my whole
I like
push at
that.
this
Good for
point,
you.
okay?
Sure.
Mr. Trump, Ivanka, all the kids, if you're listening out there, or a friend of yours is listening, send this up the road, send this up the line to our president-elect. This would ruin this part of Florida. And I think that he's got pride in each and every state. He's shown that in his thank you tour. And you know what? We would thank you if you would make sure that this does not happen. And I know he will be a government official, and this is where our government has stepped back and said, oh, it's a private company. But you know what? It affects the people that put them in office. And if some private company is doing something bad or negative to the people that support those people, this is how we change America.
It's a private company that wants public money.
Correct.
Yeah.
And he's also a smart businessman. Let's not lose sight of that.
Right. Trump is a smart businessman.
And he has
would
business
see.
holdings along the corridor here in South Florida that
Right.
are going to be impacted by the quality of life and property
Right.
values. I'm sure this is probably going to gain his attention at some point.
I would think so. And especially if you write letters,
That's
emails and
impactful.
letters, and find a way to get them delivered to Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach. Look it up.
Good idea.
It's got an address. It's right next to the Breakers Hotel, and or just down the road from there. And it's I was able to go on a tour there a few years ago. Yeah, it's quite beautiful.
Impressive
and
place.
It was, it was
Yes.
quite the place. And
I'm personally very hopeful with the new administration because increasing high-speed rail passenger systems was an initiative of the Obama administration.
Yes.
So we're not sure where Trump stands, but I know that Trump is very much a private business person, and
Right.
they need to find their money privately. So, you know, I'm very hopeful that the new administration, it's going to be even tougher for them to find government funds.
well, I say go right to the top. You know,
Absolutely.
and let's put a push on that for everybody out there. Tell your friends, and for those of you who really love trains, we do too. It's not that we don't love trains. I love the sound of a train. However, 32 or 50 of them, as it would be if there were 32 fast ones and 12 or 24, whatever it ends up being, of freight trains, is too much congestion going through our towns. And we should not have to put up with that.
Nor should I have to pay for somebody's risky project out of my
Right,
pocket.
right.
And that's what this project is trying to do.
Right, and so it's a doomed project, I
I
believe.
agree.
And as Casey has always told me, it's not a done deal.
It's not a done deal, and I want to just take a moment here to shout out to Representative Patrick Murphy. And I'm very
Yes.
disappointed he was not reelected, but he was the very first
Champion.
person. I spoke to him in
Right.
February 2014. He was the very first elected official to support our cause and spoke at the very first rally. And,
Yes.
you know, I still hope he has some contacts and he'll continue to help us, but he was a true fighter, and I thank you, Representative Murphy.
Yes, thank you, Representative Murphy. And there are others out there, Gail Harrell, who has been good.
She's still with us, and she's still with the fight.
Mhm.
Right,
Senator
and
Nagel.
Brian Mast has
Senator
been
Baker.
Brian
recently
Mast.
elected, Brian Mast, and
Mhm.
so right to
We're
these people.
counting on Brian
Yeah.
Mast to carry the torch.
Yes, and he had a commercial about it too, you know, he was against
He sure
it.
did.
So we wanna make sure he sticks to his campaign promises. And also,
Representative Posey.
Posey,
Posey's
thank
been
you.
a champion all along.
He
He
has.
has
so-
been, yes.
yeah, and Negron, Joe Negron, and he's gonna be president of the Florida.
He is.
He
Senate
is
president.
Senate
That's right,
president
he
right
is.
now,
That's
so
right.
he has influence. And so, we are hopeful that we've turned a corner a little bit, that, you know, I liken it to making smoking unpopular. If we can make this really unpopular, we'll be okay. Oh, we have 1 minute, okay. Thank you everyone for tuning in on WSTUTV.com and 1450 AM. We'll be going off the air, but we'll stay on Facebook Live for a minute or two more just to finish and wrap up. But I want to thank Casey, Traylor, and Brent Hanlon for coming in tonight. Care Florida, Florida Not All Aboard. Donate. Go to the website and donate. We need your funding, private funding, yes, for this fight, to fight off a private company that wants to use your money to do something that's crazy.
To the benefit. That's
Yeah.
right.
That's right.
So we'll see you next week, and have a great week. And I'm now president of the the Women's Council of Realtors for Stewart Martin County, and I'm loving it. And my motto is make a difference, make it happen.
Thank you,
So
Julia.
thank
Thank
you
you.
very
Thank
much.
you.
And we're gonna stay on a little longer. We out? Okay, thanks.
Good.
Thanks, Frank.
For all those who are tuning in to Facebook, you should know that I was somehow given the responsibility as chairman for Care Florida. So over the last couple months, I've now I'm wearing a new hat, if you will, which is a chairman for Care.
Great.
Mr. Ewing, E.J. Ewing, is now our treasurer for Care. Mr. Ewing also manages a a community in Hope Sound, I'm sorry, in Martin County.
Okay.
So he's very aware of the threats and that all over Florida brings to our community and our property values and things, but he's now serving as our treasurer.
Oh,
for
okay,
Care
so you're not
Florida.
treasurer anymore?
No, I'm that's
Your new
correct.
title
My-
is?
As chairman. I am
Chairman,
now chairman
oh.
of Care Florida, yes.
All right, all
Let's make
right.
sure we
Thank
get
you,
that
Chairman
right.
Hanlon.
Got big
Well, I'm
shoulders.
sorry to introduce you
Yeah.
incorrectly,
No,
but
that's okay.
I want to say
That's
hi
fine.
to another realtor who signed on, Bill Vanderwerf. He's at Yacht and Country Club, which is an affected
Yes,
community,
very much so.
much affected.
Very much
And
so.
they are wonderful to stand up to this too. The communities, you know, Admiral's Cove, Jonathan's Landing,
That's right.
Loblolly, Mariner Sands, Yacht and Country Club. Thank you to all of you boards of directors there. We can't do this without you, and if we stand together, we certainly will prevail. I believe that.
Yes.
And we are prevailing.
We are.
As Casey
It
said.
is not
To
a
be
done
very
deal.
clear,
We are.
we
yes.
are prevailing.
We are making great progress. It
Yeah.
just doesn't always get pointed out in the media, that's all.
Yeah, well, we know about that, the slanted media. So-
Well, Lisa Blunt's been very good for for carrying the message forward. She
Yes.
has been with EC Palm. So
Right,
thank
right.
you, Lisa, if you're listening out there.
Yes.
No, she's been not supporter so much, but she's been certainly has carried the message forward.
Right, right.
Which has been very important.
And that's all we really need, is just to get that message out, because if you give the information and the education, it will dawn on them.
It will.
And you know, and I have friends who are still think, oh, this is a good idea. I'm like, let me tell you, you know, and then they, oh, okay, I
It's
see.
all
it.
about education, Julia.
It is, right, right.
You know, I learned a long time ago, you never know who you're talking to.
No.
I was in a room a couple years ago, I was educating this group on all aboard Florida, and out of nowhere, someone approached me after my presentation and says, Brent, I want you to know, introduced himself to me, who he was,
Uh-huh.
and since then, he's been very influential in our fight with all over Florida. He's asked to remain anonymous the entire, which
Okay.
we have done so.
What kind of
but-
connection was
Well,
he? Like-
he has some good insight on rail traffic,
Oh,
high-speed
okay.
rail traffic, on the mechanisms of the railroad itself. But you never know who you're talking to.
You don't.
You never know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
True.
This
Very
is so true.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Well, I'm talking to wonderful people tonight. I'm talking to you guys out there. So thank you for listening and tuning in. We'll be back next week. Thanks to everybody for liking and sharing this. And when I get up, I go over to my phone and I look, and there's hundreds of people that don't show up over here. So I still haven't figured
Good.
out the technology, how it's over there and not over here. But for the few of you that did make comments, thank you very much. There's a good, and I will see more comments later. It's weird. And so I don't always get them live. So thank you to whoever made comments that I didn't read your name out. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we'll see you next week on Wednesday night,
Yay.
7 p.m.
Good.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you,
All right,
everyone.
I'm going to post this on YouTube on my
Super.
channel.
Very good.
Great.
All right?
Okay,
Thank you,
very good.
guys.
Thank you,
Got
Kate.
it. Got it. Yes.
Yeah.
Good to see you
Thank
again.
you. Likewise.